So it's March 8th, 2026, and Tehran is in flames. This is actual video from Tehran just a few hours ago as their energy infrastructure looks to be being completely crushed. We're going to talk about how the B-1 Lancer bomber from the United States military is likely behind a lot of these massive strikes. Massive fires are raging across Tehran's energy infrastructure, depots, refineries. Day 9 of Operation Epic Fury, and these American bones is what the B-1 is called, dropping heavy payloads deep into uncontested airspace in Iran at this point, turning key fuel supplies into smoking craters and hitting the regime where it hurts most, in their pocketbooks and their ability to fund missiles, proxies, and their nuclear dream at the end of the day. And really, to have control of the entire country, they need control of the purse string. So if they're not making money, that's going to be a big problem. Like when they go to their IRGC mafia bosses and they're like, yeah, just do it for a law. There's no more money, but yeah, just do it for a law. At that point, we might start to see more cracks in the actual regime itself. Speaking of cracks within the regime, a lot of you all have been asking me in the comments, what happens to Iran after all these strikes take place? Well, to answer that exact question, I'm bringing in Mike Baker and asking him that hard-hitting question to see what happens. He's a former CIA agent that runs the president's daily brief, and he's going to give us that answer towards the end of the video. So definitely stay to the end for that. But this is a massive win for U.S. air power dominance, showing once again why long-range supersonic B-1 bombers can reach out and touch anyone, anywhere with precision and overwhelming force. The U.S. military teamed up with Israel has degraded the ballistic missile capability by 86% since day one. The U.S. has sunk over 30 ships from the Iranian Navy, and now the U.S. is starving the war machine of Tehran and the regime itself. So stay to the very end of the video because we're breaking down the full strike details on how these refineries are up in flames. The B-1's killer role in this operation and Iran's desperate retaliation moves, and what comes next in this massive beatdown of Iranian air defenses and missile production facilities. Those B-1s just gave Iran's oil field the kind of deep pounding that they won't ever forget. And then check this out. This is a video of the proxy attacks that are happening on Israel right now and the responses from the different missile interception systems like the Iron Dome. Also, the Iron Beam is in action. That's a directed energy laser that is now teamed up with the Iron Dome. But the proxies, you know, Iran itself basically pushing their proxies to unleash as much might as they possibly can on Israel right now. So again, Iran proxies, same thing, and they're lighting up Israel. Israel striking down as many of those projectiles as they can. And this is the big deal right now, along with the energy infrastructure of Iran. I mean, these are Amazon-sized style warehouses where Iran is building hundreds of ballistic missiles. So now, not just targeting the launchers, but having these B-1 bombers, also B-52 bombers, target these different Amazon-sized warehouses where Iran was said to be making 100 plus extra ballistic missiles a month. So now that's being struck down thanks to the B-1 bomber and a few other assets. And then check this out. This is some Iranian rhetoric literally coming out of the regime right now. And Iran said Iran only targets military bases and U.S. assets with regard to strikes on non-military sites. Our preliminary assessment indicates that some of these incidents may have resulted from interception by U.S. electronic defense systems, which may have diverted the projectiles from their intended military targets. I mean, the balls on these guys literally thinking they can gaslight the world, and everybody's going to be like, yeah, oh yeah, the U.S. just, you know, interfered with 1,000 of your ballistic missiles and drones and directed them towards residential areas. Yeah, that seems very plausible. Every single day you can see that the desperation is getting worse and worse, with the Iran foreign minister basically saying there's no backing down. The president is kind of doubling down as well. And I think it's funny how Iran's like, don't worry, we've got a total change coming. Things are going to be different this time. We're just going to put the guy's son in power who thinks exactly like him, but it'll be totally different. Yet, this is what it feels like to be gaslit by someone who keeps you walking on eggshells all the time. To me, it's out of the playbook of that crazy ex who will say anything to get you back. And inside, you know you're being gaslit and lied to. Israel has said that they will ramp up strikes hard on energy infrastructure and leadership, especially if someone like the Ayatollah Sistan is put in power. But last night, this big move by B-1 bombers, other strategic bombers, likely B-52s and B-2s, the first direct hits on Tehran's area oil facilities and refineries. 5 sites, including storage depots and transport centers, lit up with huge fires, thick smoke plumes, and major supply disruptions. Objectives here, crystal clear: wreck Iran's nuclear breakout potential / ballistic missile stocks, gut their navy. 30 of those ships have been hit, and stop proxy threats cold by cutting off the supply of money that Iran can now send to these proxies. Strikes are hitting hundreds of sites across 174 cities in Tehran. So this isn't just a localized strike in Tehran itself. This is the gloves off supersonic B-1 bombers flying in balls to the wall, Max Afterburner. 4 of those Max Afterburning engines that you would have on an F-16 lit up, taking that B-1 bomber supersonic, releasing carpet bomb style strikes on the energy infrastructure of Tehran. President Trump is demanding unconditional surrender and promising the hardest hits are even yet to come. Still, Iran has fired back with drones and missiles on Gulf states. Bahrain's desalination plant has been damaged, sparking some water worries in the region. There's been multiple deaths in Kuwait as well from ballistic missile and drone strikes and explosions near UAE airports. So while Iran's missile and drone capability has been degraded, they're still launching some strategic strikes with a couple pop shots here and there. And they're going to keep doing that until all their missiles are basically vaporized. But the soft closure of the Straits of Hormuz moves basically the self-imposed closure by commercial vessels that just aren't willing to take the risk to go through the Straits of Hormuz moves right now. That is spiking some oil prices, as we thought would happen. You know, and I think that is a normal thing for a couple weeks with a massive military operation going on where 1/5 of the world's oil flows through. There will be some spikes, but my opinion, couple weeks of higher prices, and then once we've fully eradicated any possibility of Iran to target this commercial shipping, then you'll see the energy prices start to come back down. So Iran's capabilities are crumbling fast. Their mosaic defense is kind of what they were focused on. That means proxies, integrated air defenses, ballistic missiles, they're down 90%. Their navy is gutted. Air defense is shredded. Launch rates have dropped hard. Now just 6 to 10 missile waves per day, down from dozens early on with over 500 ballistic missiles, and 2,000 drones have been fired total. Stockpiles from Iran are thinning. Maybe they've got 500 to a 000 left. They started with 2,500, but the big deal here is destroying a lot of those launchers. So they're likely rationing, and they have missiles that they just can't launch because their launchers were said bye-bye by B-1s and B-52s. Specifically, any of the launchers that they've hidden. They've hidden a lot of launchers in civilian areas. They hide them in farming areas, and they try to disguise these at any chance they can. But their cheaper Shahhed drones keep flying out of the country, but they're under pressure now from US strikes. But at this point, the proxies are even getting hammered extremely hard, with Israel retaliating and striking back at missile launchers in different areas that are packed with Iranian proxies. So at this point, the proxies are taking it from behind, but the shock value here is heavy. Likely 1,300 have been struck in Tehran. Most of those IRGC members, missile waves reduced by 86%, missile gutted and their ships basically being destroyed. A drone carrier ship also struck and destroyed. But these B-1 Lancers are flying non-stop, missions around the clock, dropping up to 75,000 pounds of boom per B-1 bone. They make it rain on these refineries that we're seeing right now. These Vol 1s right now are sliding in deep and unloading in all the right spots. The Bull 1 Lancer is the absolute MVP for these deep strikes on infrastructure and energy in Tehran. These supersonic beasts hit Mach 1.2. They can use low altitude terrain following radar, and they have radar absorbing materials that are integrated into the actual structure of the aircraft. So they're not stealth, but they do everything they can to try to reduce their radar signature. Now, they could go in low if they wanted to, or they could go high because right now US has air superiority in the region. These things can fly marathon missions with multiple refuelings from forward basing spots, even from Diego Garcia. And then the UK has now opened up their bases for the B-1 with some footage showing us the B-1 going in and landing at bases in the UK. Thank you, UK. Appreciate that. It's also said the UK offered to send some aircraft carriers, but it's very interesting that the leadership of the UK is like, oh, the US is completely dominating over there. Yeah, we'll come help now. It's like, maybe not. You know, when you see a guy winning the fight and then you step in, it's kind of like your friend sees you get into a fight and they kind of hold back in the background to see if you're going to win or not. And then when they finally see you winning, they're like, oh yeah, I'm here to help. I was behind you the whole time. People from the UK are awesome, but the leadership needs a little work at this point. The leadership isn't someone I would want to have as my wingman. We'll just keep it as that. But the B-1 can carry one of the biggest conventional payloads out of any aircraft in the world. 75,000 pounds across 3 different bays, hauling JASM standoff missiles for standoff hits. And that's what was done early on in the conflict, keeping distance from where you're actually going to do those strikes, and then JDM guided bombs for precision devastation once you can get right into the target area, which to me, it looks like that's what these B-1s did with these strikes on the oil refineries. The B-1 can drop 24 GB-31s. Those are 2,000 pounds JDAM or up to around 30 GBU, 38, 500 pounds JDAMs to turn these sprawling refineries and tanks into craters with pinpoint accuracy. So no more relying on dumb bombs. These things pack a heavy hitter with all of these JDAMs. 20 plus joint direct attack munitions that are 2,000 pounds each. I mean, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know how to help you. The crew of 4 runs the show, aircraft commander, co-pilot, and 2 weapon systems operators, 1 for offense, 1 for defense, keeping everything dialed in. The ANAQ 33 Sniper Advanced Targeting Pod has been loaded on this aircraft as well. It gives them real-time laser designation, reconnaissance, and targeting for moving or fixed targets. Tactics start with CD to suppress IADS if they want from a standoff position, and then these B-1s go in, penetrate deep while the fighters just mop up. Pure US tech dominance and overwhelming resolve. US fighters are also executing like pros alongside these B-1s. And then the B-1s have protection as well with F-22s and F-35s. Smart move, B-1s. You should always use protection. And they're dropping loads that leave even the most high maintenance customers satisfied. So before we move to the 40 chess section, let's pop to Mike Baker from the President's Daily Brief and get his take on what actually happens, because the energy infrastructure is being hit. But after that is done, after the point of the spear goes in, who actually comes in and helps the free people of Iran against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps? But we're seeing IRGC members in the streets. You know, I saw it on X yesterday. They're in the streets with machine guns, just firing machine guns into apartments. You know, they're basically kind of the death throes. They're on their last leg, it seems, or they're desperate. And now we're potentially going to allow Kurds to come in and fight. But what does it look like taking down these IRGC members? Yeah, the problem is it's not you, the Venezuela situation can't be used as a template for Iran, right? You don't have a defined, I mean, there's an opposition, but it's not, there's no history in recent times of a defined opposition, right? It's always been external outside the country, and you're talking about unarmed people, as we've seen from the recent protests, whether they slaughtered thousands of them. And the IRGC is, you know, essentially not all, but mostly made up of real believers from an ideology standpoint, the Islamic Republic public, and they've, you know, swallowed that completely. So shifting them off of a position, getting a fracture within that organization is what's hoped for. And you're looking for people within the RGC, within the armed forces, and other elements to say enough's enough, and maybe we can lead a transition, right? So you get that splintering of those organizations, but and you know, from an intel perspective, that's what the CIA does so well. They're looking for those openings. They're looking for people that they could news, and then you get that top cover for the people of Iran. But look, the IRGC's already come out. They were very clear over the past 48 hours. Said, you come out in the streets, we'll kill you. Meaning that the people of Iran, and they've declared that. So you're asking a lot from unarmed Iranian people who've just seen thousands and thousands of their friends or family members slaughtered on the streets in recent protests. You're asking a lot of them to come out when there is no internal armed opposition. So I think that has to happen. You have to get a major splintering within the existing infrastructure in order to give that ability for the Iranian people to rise up. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Now let's move to the 4D chess section. So right now, President Trump and the administration are going full overwhelming force. No half measures. Demand unconditional surrender and try to wrap this up relatively quickly within a few months or even maybe a few weeks. Stop the nuclear breakout. Stop the regime from ever wanting a nuclear weapon. So that likely means the bonus to that is some sort of regime change, because if Khomeini's son gets into power, obviously their goal is going to be to continue the strategy of Khomeini and go after that nuclear weapon. So quick hypothetical for an escalation scenario. Iran's move at this point is they feel cornered. So they're going to get desperate. What I think might happen is they unleash fast boats into the Straits of Hormuz, just trying to cause chaos. Right now, their bigger Navy ships have been sunk, and they've probably just got a patchwork of a few of these fast attack boats. And they have their proxies that might do last-ditch efforts as this oil and funding starts to dry up. But it'll take a little while for that to happen. So likely what we see is extended strikes on these fast boats, potentially even a tens rolling in to strafe these things, and obviously an increase in bombing from B-1s and B-52 striking Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps sites across the country. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed this wrap up of the B-1 doing work in Iran right now. Energy infrastructure being targeted, with Iran responding by targeting infrastructure of its Gulf partners, and chaos happening right now. That is keeping the Straits of Hormuz from having the flow it needs, and the U.S. demanding an unconditional surrender while the rhetoric in Iran increases. Oh yeah, special thanks to Mike Baker. Definitely go check out the President's Daily Brief. It's on YouTube and pretty much anywhere where you find your podcast. And then follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day. And if you want to join the Max Writing Room and see me do a live, I mean pretty much every day at this point, I'm building an entire new studio where I'll eventually be doing these lives from. But click the link in the description, join the Ready Room. I give priority replies to the members. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on this next video. This is Ashan Ali, also known as Global News, signing